It's match day in the Premier League. It's Manchester City versus Spurs, and with Liverpool completing the comeback against Norwich, against another must-win game for City. Can Spurs do the double over them? Well, they are a historic bogey team. There's also no Riyad Mahrez today. I wouldn't put it past Spurs, like getting a cheeky 1-0 on the counter-attack with Son or someone like that. So I fully expect City to dominate the game. Whether that will result in a win, I'm hoping so, but I'm not sure. It's Antonio Conte, it's Spurs. They'll play the back five. They'll camp, they'll defend for their lives. And it would be the most Spurs thing to do, to be pretty meh throughout the whole season and then do the double over City.
He's not injured, he's faking it, isn't he? Take it. This referee will finally get the yellow card out. Yep, come on. Yes! Come on! I know. Well, they're trying to put him off, aren't they? Come on, please, Mahrez. Got to score, Mahrez.
City have lost 3-2 against Spurs. Spurs have done the double over City, and I am sad. Let's not get it twisted. City didn't deserve to win. That being said, they were still the better side. Spurs didn't necessarily play that well, but they didn't need to because City were so bad defensively. Spurs had 28% of the ball, and yet they were still able to create twice as many big chances as City. They created 4 big chances in the game. They scored 3 of them. The one they didn't score was, which they should have scored really, Ederson with a great save. City created 2 big chances with 72% of the ball. City were just bad today. Offensively, I don't think was the issue necessarily. They did have a higher XG, 2.33 compared to Spurs' 1.62. They did enough to win the game from an offensive standpoint, I think. They probably should have and could have scored more than 2. And what is that sound? Who is... Why is the car next door? Yeah, shut it up. Pissing me off. Anyway. Right, the sound stopped now. I was trying to get back on track, although I've forgotten what I was saying. City had more XG. They had 21 shots compared to Spurs' 6, but the issue was the big chances. Spurs having twice as many big chances because City was so bad defensively. I can't remember the last time I've seen them that bad defensively. I can't remember the last time they conceded 3 goals or more. Because City was so bad defensively, every single time Spurs came forward, they looked like they were going to score. That is prevalent in that they made 4 big chances and they scored 3 of them, one of which was saved by Ederson, and Harry Kane should have scored. Harry Kane should have had a hat-trick. He should have stayed on side for the other chance as well, which was ruled out by VAR. So offensively, it wasn't too much of an issue, really, because on a normal day with a competent defence, City wouldn't have conceded 3. Maybe they'd have conceded like 1, but they would have won the game basically because they did enough to score 2, 3 goals, whatever. So the issues were defensive. That's what I'm trying to say basically in a roundabout way. I'm just stressed. All my thoughts are all over the place. I thought that the fullbacks were the main issue for today. I don't think Diaz or Laporte covered themselves in glory either. Diaz for the first goal, yes, it's a brilliantly timed run by Son for the first goal, which is scoring like the opening couple of minutes. But what is Diaz doing? He's just like, the line is so high, and in that situation, you've got to back off a little bit when Spurs are in possession. They could just one ball through City, and they're in. Second goal, what on earth is the left side of City's defence doing? I just don't... What's the right side of the defence doing, allowing the ball to come in? And then the left side, I don't know what Laporte or Cancelo are doing. I don't really know whose fault it is. I haven't had a proper look back at the goals, but I've no idea what they are doing. And then on the third goal, Cancelo, again, I think he just allows the ball to come in. He doesn't do enough to prevent the cross. But then Kyle Walker gets too easily bullied. One of Walker's best attributes is he is strong and he is physical and he is aggressive in the challenge. Why is he just getting bullied so easily by Kane? He just allows Kane to just like drift in front of him. Walker can easily see it. He needs to be more aggressive and more proactive and just clear it. I just don't know what they were doing. It's a tricky one because City's fullbacks are generally so good. I've given Cancelo all the plaudits this season because he is so good. But he did have a stinker today, and I think Walker had a stinker. And I think the whole defence had a stinker. Ederson made that one good save, but he was also a little bit shaky throughout as well. I can't really recall if he was at fault for any of the goals. I mean, he was at fault for the Kane goal, which was then ruled as offside.
But the main issue was the defence. As I say, Rodri had his worst game that I think I've ever seen in a City shirt. So many balls given away. De Bruyne, no idea what he was doing in terms of his passing as well. Just the basics. It was the basics that were just going wrong for City, especially in the first half. I thought Pep would basically give them a massive bollocking, but they were making the same mistakes in the second half as well. I think the only player who actually sort of played well was probably Gundogan, who I didn't even necessarily want to start today, but not only did he score the goal, he forced an amazing save from Lloris as well, and he just was the best player on the pitch by I think he's the only one who I can say had an actual good game. This is now the point in the video where it's going to come across as me being salty, bitter, rattled, whatever the term is, and maybe all of those terms are correct, but I just want to go back to what I said before of City didn't deserve to win, but they were the better side than Spurs. Spurs today played anti-football. And again, I preface all this by saying it might come across as salty. I apologise for that. Spurs played anti-football today. There was no intent attacking-wise other than on the counter-attack. They succeeded possession non-stop. There was no attempt to press. I think the average positioning, certainly in the first half, was every single Spurs player, I think basically every single Spurs player, apart from Harry Kane, was in their own half. So that is the definition of camping and having everyone behind the ball. All of their players kept going down unnecessarily. There was a ridiculous amount of time wasting from the goalkeeper, defenders, everyone. So many players kept going down injured. Harry Kane. I think the worst one, I can't remember all of the examples, but the worst one was when Emerson went down in the first half. And this is actually a serious thing. Emerson went down. Unless I'm misremembering, it definitely wasn't a head injury. I think Sterling had a shot, which Emerson blocked, and then Emerson stayed down. City recycle possession, as they do, looking to try to create another attack on the edge of Spurs' box. Emerson realises he isn't going to get the free kick, so he holds his head. Does that. Holds his head. Because he knows that the referee has to stop the game for a head injury, because the new regulations are head injury, or I don't know if they're new, but the regulations are head injury, risk of concussion, you've got to stop the game, which is fair enough. But I mean that should be a bookable offence. I'm not saying the game turned on that. This is just a mini rant I'm talking about, and it's and it's indicative of Spurs' gamesmanship throughout and anti-football throughout. That should definitely be like a booking, at least feigning a head injury, because that's a very serious thing. The reason why that's brought in is because it's such a serious thing. Doctors come on, check he's okay, of course he's okay, and 2 seconds later, he's back onto the pitch. Goalkeeper gets booked for time wasting in the 81st minute. It's too late. It's too little too late by then. Like you've got, if you want to stamp out time wasting, and I don't watch the full 90 minutes of every single game in the Premier League, so I have no idea how bad it is across other games. I tell you right now, every single game at the Etihad is full of time wasting. From minute 1, the goalkeepers take their sweet time on everything, the defence take their sweet time on everything. And again, I'm not saying that is the reason why City lost. I've said the reason why City lost is because they're poor defence. This is just more of sort of like a personal rant sort of thing. But it just annoys me. You've got to book them earlier, surely. What's the point in booking Lloris with 10 minutes to go? It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything by then. He's won. He's won by that point. This is the most annoying thing. Because Spurs should have been punished for having a good team, having a good group of players, and opting to come to another team's ground and play anti-football, and to solely play on the counter-attack, and to be very divey. I'm very obsessed with time wasting, gamesmanship, that sort of thing. Little things in the game, like for example when Mahrez went to get his penalty and all the players crowd around him, that sort of thing. They weren't punished. And there's only one entity which is responsible for punishing a team that comes to the Etihad to play that style of football, anti-football, and that is City. And City didn't punish them. So so annoyingly, frustratingly, Spurs, Conte's approach, this is Conte ball, essentially. Conte ball is going to be lauded everyone's going to say, oh yeah, and this is really a blueprint of how you beat City right now, and this and that and this and that. And rightly so, because it obviously worked. But that's the annoying thing. Because as I say, people are now going to go away and say, oh, it's so effective. You know, it might not be pretty on the eye, but at least it works. And in the big games, that shouldn't be rewarded. But City have allowed it to be rewarded. It's City's, the onus. I'm not blaming Spurs for doing it, because why wouldn't they do it? I mean, to be fair, they shouldn't have done it to that degree, but I can't really talk because they got the win. I do think there are sort of degrees to this. It was really bad. But in any event, it's up to City to stop that from being effective. And annoyingly, the defence just didn't turn up today. It was the same issue every single time. What I did notice, because Spurs play a back five, it definitely was a back five. Defensively, obviously that's an issue. Because the easiest thing in football is to defend. The hardest thing in football is to break down a low block and attack, basically. And there was this one bit of footage in particular that should be on screen right now, where City are just trying and probing, where they just can't find a way through Spurs, because they were defensively very organised. But it's not hard to be organised, it's hard to be progressive and attack and create opportunities. So defensively, that was the issue. When Spurs were in defence, that was the issue. But when Spurs, actually, on the rare occasions they did have the ball, the wide areas were such an issue because they're playing with a back five. Both goals come from the wide areas because Spurs have superiority width-wise because they're playing a back five. So I don't understand why City couldn't deal with that. The way to deal with that is simple. You just ask your wingers to be more defensive when they don't have the ball, and you ask them to support the fullbacks. Because what it meant was, and it was always Emerson, it seemed, on the right-hand side, on Cancelo's side. So Sterling really probably had to, or well, the wingers rotate. But really, whoever was on the left had to come back a little bit. Goals numbers 2 and 3 come from those wide areas. So many bad individual performances. The only good individual performance was Gundogan. That is unforgivable. You cannot equalise in the 92nd minute and lose the game. Doesn't matter how much added time's on. I think Kane scored in the 95th minute, but there was like 7 or 8, 9 minutes of extra time because of all the injuries and all that stuff. The performance I saw today wasn't the current City. This wasn't the modern City. This was a much more naive, poor, tepid City. I think City were due a bad game. In fact, I predicted a Spurs win. I predicted 2-1. If Liverpool win at the Etihad, one assumes their goal difference will be better by then as well. They'll be on the same points, and Liverpool will be winning the Premier League at that point. The manner in which it's happened has annoyed me, mainly, because even though I thought City were the better team, they just were. The issue was one of just defensive stupidity. I don't know if it was like a naive from like the likes of like Walker and Cancelo, and I think the centre halves. Well, I think for me the main issue was the fullbacks, but the whole back four, they just kept allowing Kane to. It was the same. It was like the same goal. The offside, even the offside goal, is basically the same. Like, ball comes in, Kane gets it back of the net. It's not even like the goals, apart from the first one, which was scored on the counter. It's not even like they were necessarily scored like with City unaware. City had time to get bodies back and defend it properly, but they just didn't. Spurs weren't exceptional. They just put the ball in and Kane scored. Just a bit deflated, really. Upset with the defending more so than anything else. I think on the bounce of play, a draw probably would have been a fairer result. But honestly, City didn't deserve anything based on how they defended. It's Son and Harry Kane. They've not been having the best season, but it's still Son and Harry Kane. It's almost like they forgot who they were playing against. I don't know if it's complacency, or I don't know if I'm reading too much into that. Maybe it's just a bad day at the office. I think for a lot of players it was. Like so Rodri, for example, he normally doesn't make 5 bad passes in a row sort of thing, and never mind like in a whole game. So hopefully it's just a one-off. City were due a bad performance or a bad result anyway. The issue is that Liverpool keep riding their luck, and which I think is fair to say. I've been doing it for a fair few games now. I think of the Burnley game. I think of the Palace game. Even against Inter Milan, Norwich today, they went 1-0 down. And the issue is that I think Liverpool probably will kick on now. And they'll go, right, look, we got away with those, but we need to actually perform better. I do think that they'll learn from those mistakes. And now the question is, are City going to go through a similar patch, and are they going to be able to ride out that bad period? Based on today, definitely not. Conceding 3 goals, ridiculous. I think just ridiculous. Spurs aren't good, and yet they've beaten City twice this season. So, sorry, I just don't know. Thank you so much for watching the video and listening to my rants. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you next time. And hopefully, oh God, it's the Manchester derby next. Oh, in terms of like the next match day vlog. Oh God, I don't know. Normally I'd be mega confident for that because United are really bad, but United will play like Spurs did. They will literally use that as a blueprint. They will not attempt to press. They will just try to hit City on the counter with the likes of Rashford. Oh, I can just picture it now, like a 93rd minute Ronaldo winner, and he does the C in front of all the away fans, and I will. I'll be so hurt. Hopefully not. I'll see you guys next time.